When the boy said, "One day when I have something to my name, I'll come back and repay you," he did not say it dramatically or loudly, only quietly, the way children promise things when they are afraid of being forgotten. And at the time, Clara Wilkes only nodded because the child standing in front of her had lost more than words could carry. Having buried both parents before his 10th birthday and wandered half-starved along back roads until he reached land that did not belong to him, but somehow felt safer than anywhere else left in the world. And Clara had lived on that land for nearly 3 decades. A narrow farm at the county's edge, where asphalt surrendered to dirt and dust, hung in the air like something unfinished, where fences leaned not because she was careless, but because one woman could only hold so much upright at once, and she had never married. Never. Inherited help never waited for rescue. She rose with the sun worked until the light thinned, and slept knowing the land would ask again tomorrow. So when she noticed movement by the tree line that afternoon, too slow for deer and too unsure for thieves, she stopped hauling water and waited. And the boy emerged thin and stiff, his clothes crusted with dried sweat, his shoes split at the seams. And when she asked what he was doing there, his voice shook as he said he was not stealing, just lost. And she knew hunger when she saw it, because hunger leaves its mark. Quietly in the way, children stand still as if motion itself costs too much energy, so she asked his name. "Eli," he said, and when she asked where he came from, he only pointed back toward the road and said anywhere but there. And she did not ask again. She told him to sit on the porch while she finished her work. And when she returned, she placed a plate of beans and bread in front of him. Nothing special, just enough to keep someone standing. And he ate as if the food might vanish if he slowed down, apologizing mid-bite when he realized she was watching. And that night she folded a blanket near the stove and let him sleep without asking when he would leave. And by morning he was still there. And by the 3rd day he stopped asking if he should go, because she never told him to stay, but she never sent him away, either, instead handing him small tasks, quiet ones, teaching without ceremony, and weeks turned into months, and Eli learned when not to speak, when to listen, how to move without being told, how Clara ate less when food was scarce and pretended not to notice. And when winter came and illness pinned him down with fever, she sold tools she had relied on for years and walked miles to town for medicine. And one night, coughing and burning, he whispered the promise that would follow them both across decades. And Clara smiled tiredly and told him life collected its debts in its own time, not knowing how exact those words would become. And the farm aged with them as seasons passed the boy, growing taller, stronger, learning where frost hit first and where soil held water longest, learning the land not through lessons but through survival. And people in town talked quietly, some calling Clara generous, others calling her foolish, none offering help, and she learned to read judgment in smiles that stopped short of kindness. And when school officials came asking questions, she signed what she could, packed extra biscuits when lunches ran thin, stitched shoes late into the night until her fingers no longer felt the needle. And time kept moving whether she asked it to or not, until the day a black sedan rolled down the dirt road and stopped by the gate. And Eli froze because the man stepping out was his grandfather, all sharp posture and legal words, speaking of custody and lost years and a life meant for the boy that did not include a failing farm. And Clara listened without interrupting, then nodded and told Eli to go, not because it didn't hurt, but because love does not cage opportunity, and he hugged. Her heart promised he would not forget, and she slipped him a folded paper with her name and address, just in case. And after he left, silence settled heavy. Clara working longer, her back bending deeper with time, refusing offers to sell, even as development crept closer, neighbors selling off fields, signs rising where crops once stood, inspectors arriving with clipboards and empty explanations, letters following filled with words like unsafe and non-compliant, and eventually a court notice she stared at long enough to memorize. And when the eviction day arrived, the trucks came late morning, county vehicles chewing the edges of her land, dust coating her crops like insult. Men reading procedures without meeting her eyes, moving too quickly, dumping boxes, cracking a framed photograph no one bothered to pick up, neighbors watching from the road without crossing the fence. And when they carried out her mattress, something in Clara finally gave way, her knees hitting the dirt, her hands pressing into the soil as if she could hold the land in place by force. Tears coming loud and uncontained, and just as the inspector checked his watch, the sound split the air, a helicopter, descending over the far field, flattening crops. As it landed, dust exploding outward, and a man stepped out, calm and deliberate eyes, sharp, scanning the scene, asking what was happening. And when his gaze fell on Clara, something in him tightened. He knelt without touching her, asked her name, and when she said it, he inhaled, sharply closed his eyes, and stood turning back to the officials with a voice that stopped motion itself, telling them to halt, pulling out his phone, explaining that inspection reports were forged zoning filings, false authority non-existent. And when he turned back to her and said his name, Eli, the boy on her porch finally aligned with the man standing in front of her, the promise no longer abstract, but present and real. And within minutes calls were made, documents surfaced, signatures exposed as copied, timelines collapsed, deputies shifted uneasily, neighbors whispered as enforcement froze in real time, trucks shutting down, belongings carried back inside, and by afternoon the convoy left slower than it arrived, the road quiet again but heavier, and Eli stayed, walking the land with Clara, listening, remembering more than he admitted, returning often after that, not with announcements, but with protection, securing the farm under preservation no court could touch, hiring local workers, restoring without erasing, and when auditors came, they came properly, unraveling corruption thread by thread, charges filed, corporations pulling out quietly, then all at once and through it all. Clara slept without listening for trucks, the boy she fed now, the man who shielded her the land still. Hers the promise intact, and for the first time in years she went inside before dark, leaving the door unlocked, trusting the quiet, because kindness once planted does not vanish. It waits, it grows, and when it returns, it does so with a force no money or power can silence.